Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of The Crazy Life. I'm Brian. Joining me is Henno.
Hi.
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 And it still feels weird doing this, you know?
Yeah, well, it's weird because it's not like Jen took a week off.
Right.
It's like, no, this is the new
This
format.
is the new norm, yeah.
Yes.
I gotta find
And
my voice at the beginning now.
Yeah, actually, you get to do that.
Yeah. Gotta figure out what the new intro
Yeah.
is if I change anything. Probably not. I think I'm just
Exactly.
gonna go with how I did this one and just it's
Yeah.
the hardest part is that whenever I say hey, the next thing in my brain goes enthusiast because of salty language and doing that for hundreds of episodes. So I have to remember different show. But yeah, whatever.
Can we have our own classification on the Crazy Life? Like, hey, delusionist.
Yeah. That'd probably be easier for me to remember, right? It keeps me in the same kind of thing. I just have to write the word down so I can look at it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least once, your keywords.
Yeah. Kind of like early on when we did the show and I used to have to, I always had to have I had a note card that had all the social media stuff on it and everything until it really got drilled in my head, So.
Yeah, I really wanted to podcast last week because I was supposed to have Brianna and Kiki here.
Oh.
And I thought it would have been fun that we would have had two guests, but I ended up getting COVID.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I totally forgot about it until Tony and I recorded, and then I was like, "Oh, we should have recorded last week."
Yeah, and I would have brought it,
Whoops.
and it was funny how I didn't. So the weekend before, it was well, let me go back to the week before.
Okay.
One of my coworkers who's just been perpetually calling in days and calling in late, every single week.
Oh, geez.
And we have just PTO that you can use on anything. You don't have to say what it is. You can just say I'm taking a PTO day.
Right.
So last week he calls in and he specifically says he's got the chills and that he couldn't sleep and he wasn't coming into work. And then he comes into work the next day, clearly still sick.
Ugh.
And coughing. And I was like, and I watched him walk in and he walked out and I just started simmering. Because I was just like, I hate it so much. I think it's arrogant.
Yeah.
I think it's disrespectful.
Yeah.
I think, and so the first thing I did is I got up and I went and worked somewhere else. And it was like, well, I can hopefully avoid him.
Yeah.
Saturday night, I start feeling like I'm getting a cold. Now, was that enough time for something to, incubate? I don't know. Maybe not. But that was the only person I know that I was around that was definitely sick. Sunday, I definitely have a cold. Like, I'm like, okay, I have a cold.
Yeah.
I had to go into work because it was something I needed to do. So I'm like, I'm just going to go up there. I'm by myself anyway on Sunday. So I did an hour. I took the dogs for a walk, and I'm just like, I'm going to go home. Monday morning, I wake up and I'm like, okay, I am definitely still sick. It's no longer a cold. It's something more, but what it is, I don't know. And so I sent an email in saying, and I also just said in my email that I wasn't there on Sunday either. So my GM knew, that when I didn't clock in. And sometime in the afternoon, about 2:00, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's that weird taste thing that's not quite right. And I'm like, I better take a test. So I grab my, COVID test that I have, and it lit up positive immediately. It was like, bing!
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's take another one just in case there was something funky about that one.
Yeah.
Because it reacted so fast.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, and it's funny because like
was,
on the test they even tell you like don't like give it, like at least the ones I took, it's like give it 15 minutes, even because if it lights up right away, don't immediately assume, but give it the full time. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, let's just do another one. Same exact thing. I'm like, okay. So I sent an email to work saying I have COVID. And while I'm in the emails, I look, it says general manager not going to be in on Monday. One of the housekeepers got sent home.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, okay. And with the next email, so Sean, my coworker who kind of manages the housekeepers, sends a message to the housekeeper that he sent home. She showed up sick too, like totally sick. And he's like, you go home right now. He says, Heno tested positive for COVID. You need to take a COVID test.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? She tests positive. So now I'm like, oh yeah, it was Antonio. I know, like, because Antonio hangs out with Maria all the time.
Oh, okay.
And
so
I'm like,
exposure.
Okay, for sure. That's two out of 9 employees now.
Yeah.
So then the next day, I don't see anybody but more about, being sick or anything like that. But there's an email from my coworker, Sean, saying, if you're not feeling well, stay home.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you for saying that. I need, because I'm like, I'm really unhappy right now because I am going to have to burn the PTO I'd saved to go home for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I'm really upset. I said, if you're sick, stay home.
Yeah.
And I was in all capital letters because I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the general manager showed up to work on Tuesday, still sick.
Oh, geez.
And Sean just went home. Like the Kathy, the bookkeeper's like, Joe, go home. Like, you have 100 hours of PTO.
Yeah.
Go home. Nope. He stayed there. So Sean, this is what Sean told me. Sean said he clocked out, left. Didn't even say anything. He was so mad because he was going to his daughter's college. It's her freshman year in college.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they, the big orientation thing, right?
Jeez, yeah. And he
you
could walk in there with
Parents'
it.
Week.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't going to fly out if he was sick.
Right.
So he went home that day and he stayed home the next day. And this time I called him and I'm like, does anybody know if Joe took a test? And nobody knows.
Yeah.
And I was starting to get really angry at this point. Now, Tuesday night we had a power outage that was planned and I actually went into work, which was, I was totally happy to do. Like, nobody's there. It's midnight. That way nobody has to, because it's just going to, like right away I said, I tested positive for COVID. I have to isolate for 5 days.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the rule,
yeah.
right? And but I'm like, I can go at midnight to work and turn on servers again and pumps and motors, and I can sleep in the next day,
Yeah.
right? Because I already can't go to work anyway. So
Yeah.
I got to burn off a couple hours doing that, and then I was like, oh, you know what? I do have some reports that I could write from home, and my GM was great. He let me, he booked me for all the hours I told him I worked at home. And, I was pretty run down, but I was able to get up and do some yard work and this and that.
Yeah.
But by the time Friday came around, I was really mad.
Yeah.
Like I was really angry.
It
because
sucks
I really,
because we're taught from like going back to school even, right? That it's like you don't miss school unless you're like, dead basically.
dying. Yes.
It's and so many of us are taught that, and it's like we're taught that because we're being trained for the workforce, and that's the attitude there too, is that unless you're dying, go to work basically. And it's like, this is so backwards, it's so wrong.
Yeah.
Because if one person comes in, not just I mean, even if you disregard COVID, the flu, a cold, whatever it is, anything contagious, if you go in, you're in a small space, you're all breathing the same air, anything respiratory related, especially, it's like you can just spread this around like wildfire. One person turns into how many people, and it was like, and then adding COVID to it too. It's like, come on, it's like, I hate the fact that policies haven't changed much, even with COVID. You would have thought that places would have been more adamant about the if you're sick, stay home, and most places haven't been.
Oh, no. Here's the thing is the lack of communication and the lack of a distinct policy and how things are to be handled still hasn't. I mean, every single time that we've had an outbreak of COVID at my work, it's been handled poorly. Every single time. And Sean even said that he told Maria that she can't come back to work until she had a test. And I'm like, Sean, that's incorrect. I'm like, she isolates for 5 days and can come to work with a mask on.
Yeah.
That's the CDC
That's the
guideline.
policy now. Yeah.
Right. And the fact that you're a manager, you should know this.
Yeah.
But you don't know this because we do not make a firm statement of our policies.
Yeah.
So by Friday, I was in, like, I know why the guy, I don't know why the guy comes in sick.
Yeah.
I heard that he doesn't have any more PTO left.
Right.
So that's why he's showing up. But I don't know why he's taking days all the time just randomly.
Right. But it still goes to the same thing, that's where it really stinks, is that you get this PTO, and then if you get something like COVID where the policy is isolate for X amount of days, you're out of PTO. Yeah. What are you supposed to do, right?
That's it.
You just stay home and not get paid for a week, basically. That's hard for a lot of us, So
a lot of people,
and that's why it's like. So I see why I can understand why they would go, but there's something wrong with that. The policy is flawed. The policy needs fixing, so that you don't have to sit home or whatever. It's too bad you can't work a couple extra hours a week or whatever to make that back up to the company or something to that effect. Some way of parsing it out to where it's like, okay, you can still get paid, but work. You have to give us the hours at some point.
Or the employer looks at it as, we don't want to have a full outbreak here, so we are going to extend an extra benefit to you just for COVID.
Right.
Just for COVID.
Right.
Well, the thing that gets me the most out of all of this is the fact that we have residents at our property that are well into their 70s and 80s.
Sure.
And if we get sent into a unit all the time.
Yeah.
And if I've been exposed because somebody feels like, I'm vaccinated, what's the big deal?
Right.
It's like, sure. And I know that's our GM's outlook on it.
Yeah.
He's like, he's healthy. He's vaccinated.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Nothing. Because it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Like, I was run down. Yeah. I mean, when I went back to work on Friday wearing a mask, because I was cleared. That was it. And I'd sat home long enough, and I didn't want to lose this PTO.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't last very long. I mean, I was still weak, and I'm still congested. I
Yeah.
still have leftovers from it.
That's
But
how I was,
but all
because
my
like the first 2 days kicked my butt pretty bad. Like I had really bad chills like the one day, and then the next day I still felt like whatever. But then from that I could I got on, what was it, that Paxlovid they put me on day 3 basically. So
oh yeah
I immediately felt like $1,000,000, but it only lasted for a few hours, and then it's like, okay,
yeah
yeah, I'm still sick,
yeah exactly. And
But
that was
really,
like
I was okay-ish at that point, just a
yeah
little rundown,
like
like you said.
like last night was the first time I honestly, well, today actually is the first time I really feel normal,
Yeah,
like where I feel like I have my same energy and passions and this and that. Like there's been something off every night this
yeah.
week. And
I just couldn't quit
but there
coughing. That was my thing. Like,
that was me last
yeah,
year.
I
Oh,
just
I
couldn't
hated
quit
that.
coughing. It lasted for, I think it was about a week and a half before I was
Yeah.
done coughing. And after that, then I was finally like, okay, now I feel normal again because I'm not coughing every 2 seconds,
Yeah, so that, like, I looked at it as like, yeah, things have gotten a lot better. The strains aren't as harsh.
Yeah,
I actually wasn't eligible for the last vaccine. I'm eligible for this one.
yeah,
I'll have to wait, but I still don't like the attitude that, well, it's not, yes, eventually this will not be a big deal,
yeah.
but as long as people are still dying.
Yeah,
I mean,
a
it's just a
lot of
fact.
people are still dying. Yeah, yeah,
Are still dying, and as long and yes, people still die from the flu every year, and it's double for me.
yeah,
It doesn't matter whether you have influenza or COVID,
yeah.
stay home. So
Yep.
I was ready to just start all sorts of trouble on Friday, and I called the accountant and I said, look, I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is how I feel right now. And she was like, okay, I totally understand why you feel that way. You're right. Like, our general manager doesn't step up and do anything until he's got at least 3 complaints almost. It's like,
Yeah,
and in effect, she talked me down, which was what I needed.
yeah,
I needed to just, because since then, no conversations happened,
yeah.
nothing. But part of that's just because Sean's on vacation. When Sean gets back, there's going to be a conversation, and I'm holding my powder dry until then, because my whole thing. Because what I will say is this, and there's been Joe came out to me this week and just said, hey, how many days do you need at Thanksgiving? We will work with you.
Yeah,
And the reason he's going to work with me, because evidently we have 2 employees that are so negative on their PTO that if they didn't work with me, it would be really terrible.
okay.
So they're going to work with me. And but I am going to say, if and I know we'll eventually have a meeting on this, because Sean, that's just how Sean is. Which it sometimes it bothers me, but in this case, I love that he just starts stuff. But I will say at that meeting that, because I'm just going to basically say, I know you're all going to show up sick.
Yeah,
You're going to wake up and you're going to be like, I have a cold. I'm going to go into work.
yeah.
And then you're going to be sneezing on everybody.
Well, that's
And
the other thing
because
too. It's like if you're gonna show up and you're feeling that way, at least mask up.
wear
I
a
mean,
mask,
minimize
right?
as much as try to keep distance. Try
Yep.
to do things to minimize contact with other
But
people the best you can.
but they won't.
Yeah, they
And I'm
won't.
just going to be
Yeah,
honest. I said, but you won't,
yeah,
because you don't want to wear a mask,
yeah.
and you don't want to tell anybody that you're sick.
Right.
And so what I'm going to say is that, so that leaves it up to me to protect myself. And if anybody shows up with obvious symptoms of something, I'm leaving.
Yeah,
I'm leaving,
yeah,
and I will be back when that employee is no longer at our office.
yeah,
And that's what I'm going to say, because all I can do is take care of myself. I cannot make the general manager do policies, can't make an employee
yeah,
not show. I can't make anybody do that. All I can do is protect myself.
yeah,
And that's what I'll do.
yeah.
And
I get it. I went into
what
my
else can I do?
doctor's office a couple days ago because my dentist is above my doctor's office, and I get a mask out of because we have a bag with them in the glove box. I get a mask out, to go in and everything, and I walk in and I'm like, oh, the sign's gone. There's no mask policy in here anymore. They got rid of it. They've up until like last month still were going into that office. You still had to mask up, and I was fine with that because for years, I don't like waiting rooms because there's always people, sick. That's the point.
Yeah.
They've gone to the doctors because they're sick, right?
Because they're sick.
Because they're sick. And luckily I was going upstairs, so I'm like, whatever. But it was weird. It's like, I'm sitting there and I still put the mask on and everything. And like, I don't know how many people, you don't have to wear that. I'm like, I know that. Like, I want to wear this because I heard people coughing, in the other spots. It's like, I don't want to, I'm going to do everything I can do, even if it's minimal, like it
Yeah.
just, whatever, it makes me feel better. Just, I'm not hurting anybody,
Yeah.
I'm not,
That's
I'm
it.
not yelling at anyone else to wear one. I'm just, but
Yep.
I'm going to wear one and whatever.
Take care of yourself. That's it. Yep.
And, yeah, so I get what you're saying, but it felt so weird being in there, seeing people's faces again, because it has been so long now.
It's been so long. Yeah.
It's
Well,
like
I'm seeing.
there were people
I'm
working
seeing
there.
more-
I've never seen their face.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of people wearing masks in town because we are having a little bit of an outbreak, and people are
Yeah.
being, cautious and courteous. And I've seen some people that work at the health club walking in and out with masks, so they either, had something and were past it or whatever it is. And so I'm happy to see that. That's all good news. And
Yeah.
but the best news that's happened for me is right before we started podcasting, I finally met my neighbor that owns the property next door.
Oh, yeah,
He
right.
Finally, a year after buying a house, came over, got my attention, and introduced himself.
It's wild too, because you're not like me, to where I'm not out in the yard a lot. So the opportunities are not really there. You're outside with your flowers
All
in
the
your
time.
yard, and yeah,
All the
and the
time.
dogs, yeah,
all the time.
right.
So I was mowing I was using the lawnmower to pick up leaves in the backyard, and he came over, and he wanted to talk about this tree that, and like, what, is this your tree? I'm like, well, I'm like, I actually want to cut this tree down. I already cut a bunch of branches out of it because it's dead. He's like, well, is it your fence? I'm like, the property line's basically the fence. So the tree's on your side. I'm happy to pay for it, to have it done. I just wanted your permission first before I did it.
Yeah.
And then he started talking about all the stuff that hasn't been cleaned up. And he's like, I'm going to take care of all this. I'm going to get it all cleaned up. I'm like, cool. And he said, I'm really thinking about taking out a couple more of these trees for this. And he's like, but the city told me I shouldn't because it might be I'm like, no, they're wrong. It's on your property. Don't worry about it. I'm like, let me show you where, because I've looked at our code and everything. And I told him, I said, because he needs room for snow storage, and all the vehicles that he has there.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't have a problem with you pushing snow on my property, as long as we have an agreement about it.
Yeah.
And you did it last year without asking me, and it
Right.
made me really mad.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm like, I'm cool with it. I'm like, I will move all this stuff. There's no landscaping in here. He's like, well, I got a plow, so I'll if you got a berm in your driveway, I'll move it. I'll be awesome.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm thinking about putting up a fence. And I'm like, well, I know all the fence rules. The permit's only $100. You can go up to 6 feet. He's like, but I don't know where I asked the city where the property line is. They said you need to get a surveyor. And I'm like, hey, I'm interested in contributing to the fence.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe I'll pay for the surveyor. You build the fence.
Yeah.
We had the greatest conversation. I was like, yes, this is how it should have been. Why did it take you a year
Yeah.
to come talk to me? And
Right.
so I told him, I said, I'll move these rocks out of here. Go ahead and push snow onto. I'm like, I blow snow onto our other neighbor's property. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if
I
you
don't think
push snow
most
over
people
here.
do unless it affects them. Like if you buried their car or, put it somewhere to where it would like leak into their house or something like that, But otherwise, I don't think most people really care as long as it's not creating a nuisance for them,
Yeah. So I was just had this incredible just sense of relief because, for the most part, it doesn't rent space in my head, but
Yeah.
every once in a while it does. Because what it is it's unfinished business.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much meditation I do. It doesn't matter how many tools I bring to the table. There
Right.
are certain things that they're going to irritate me. And then it's a matter of, okay, how long? And I've gotten pretty good of getting past it within, I consider, a relatively
Yeah.
efficient amount of time. But every once in a while, it sticks.
Yeah.
And like I totally get what he's doing with the property, and I totally support it. I even told him, I said, you should take out most of these trees, and make a driveway as big as mine, because you have enough vehicles,
Yeah.
and then you'd have storage and everything. And
Yeah.
like I don't care about the cars. I just care about this junk.
Yeah.
And so, and the yard is terrible right now, and he knows he's got, winter coming. But it was great. He's like, hey, I need to get all this cleaned up before winter, and yeah. And so, unfortunately, I didn't think about like at the last minute, like, hey, let me give you my phone number. I forgot, but I know I'll see him again, or I'll give it to. I know his one of his guys, Hector. I can give it to him and say, hey, give this to Jesus.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally cool. I was like. And I was really honest with him. I said, you really made me mad.
Yeah.
Like, it really made me mad. Like, I'm total,
Yeah.
like this junk looks terrible. And there was a pile of snow in my front yard,
Yeah.
and you never asked.
Right.
And you took out the sprinklers.
Oh, geez.
You know?
Yeah. Right.
Right. And I told him that. And I was just like, I'm a cool guy.
Yeah.
I totally will help. But anyhow, so it was great. It was like, I'm so excited. I'm going to get that tree removed. And, at least I now, like, because I wave to them and I say hi, but it's always been like, there's just been this tension. It's finally gone. I was like, yes. He's so happy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
Finally sort that out.
yeah, so those are my highlights. What's new with you?
Oh, geez. It was a week of appointments for me. I had dental cleaning, and then I was supposed to have 2 fillings done, which would be the last 2. Well, I had one that was supposed to be the last one, but after scheduling that, I broke part of another filling. So
Oh man.
and so when I was in
brutal.
there for the cleaning, the dentist came over and looked at it, and I was like, "Can you do them both the same day?" I'm like, "Cause every other dentist I've been to can do like more than one at a time." And I'm like, "I've got anxiety. And I don't drive. It's a real pain for me to have to keep coming back, and things keep getting canceled." Well, then I had to cancel.
Oh no.
Because my ride was not able to come through. So, and I really was kind of feeling, I think my anxiety was kind of getting me a little bit too. And then yesterday I had therapy. So and that had gotten canceled last time, and I'm waiting for the day of the text to oh, she's not going to be in office and whatever. And then I went in, had a really good talk with her about kind of the funk I've been in and different stuff, and she actually recommended that I go talk to my doctor about maybe upping my antidepressant for the winter, and then seeing where I'm at in the spring. And I think that's actually the more I think about it, I think that's probably not a bad idea. So odds are what he's going to tell me is what I'm on. It's like it goes 5, 10, 15. I'm on 5.
Oh,
so
yeah,
he's
yeah.
probably going to be like, yeah, just go ahead and take 2. But I'm still going to I'm not going to just, oh, I can do this, type of thing. I'm going to go talk to him before I do it. So that appointment's next week. But I think that's the right move. But yeah, I talked to her about a lot of different stuff. Just, really, I kind of felt like I really hit on the fact that I think a lot of what's really been bothering me is, like I told her, I was like, I look down the road a little bit, and I'm not talking 5 or 10 years. I'm talking just a little bit, and I just don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I just don't see anything, and it's really heavy and depressing because I don't see a path. So and we talked about that for a while, and I think that's something we're going to pick back up on when I go back in, because we talked at length about that kind of thing, and money, and because my computer motherboard died last week, and because it was a shoddy one, and just as soon as the computer wouldn't start up, I just immediately started spiraling. Just that quick. It was just oh no, how much is this going to cost? I don't have the money for this, those kind of things. And that's, as I've said countless times on here, that's my number one trigger. Nothing triggers me faster than lack of money type stuff. So, but yeah, I had really good talk with her. Actually ran long and then ran longer.
Oh, wow.
Because the actual session is scheduled for 45 minutes. We talked for an hour, and then she was rescheduling me, and then we got to talking about why she actually shared some stuff with me about why she wasn't able to hold the last appointment with me and stuff. And I was like, oh man. And then we talked, and I've gotten really good about when I feel like we're near time or we're heading over it, that I'll ask her, like, do you have another patient? Because if so, I'll shut it down and leave, because
Yeah.
I don't want to be disrespectful to other people and her boundaries and such. But she was like, oh no, she's like, I just have some paperwork to do. And then we talked for like 15 minutes, just not, it was weird. It was like, we're still therapist, patient, but yet we were also kind of not in that moment. It was a little more of just,
you're just
a couple
two
of people
people.
talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just with shared life experiences. So it was really nice, and it was, I needed it. I walked out again. I always talk about, like, I come out, if I feel lighter, I feel like, okay, this has done something for me, other than just being a dump kind of a thing. And I don't think it was this time. I actually went out of my way this time to not just be like, here's what's happened to me since we've last talked. Okay, time's up, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of, I realized
Yeah,
I was kind of falling into that rut. And I'm like, this isn't really doing anything, because all I'm doing is just bleh, and then leaving.
Yeah.
And that there is an element of catharsis to that, but there's no plan. So nothing's going to change. So next time I go in, it's going to bleh, and then, so I wanted things to feel different this time. So, and they did. And so, yeah, came out of there feeling pretty good. Went and got my flu shot. And,
scheduled that.
Yeah, little rundown today from it, but not bad at all. So, yeah. So that was, but it's just, I can kind of feel, just the appointments, just, even though they're nothing major, just still add up. They take spoons, as we talked about on that one episode. They pulls a bunch out of you. And I the other night I went with my brother for a little bit, and we were going to a couple different stores, and I was kind of hitting a point to where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go home now. And then I'm with him, and then he stops at his house, then he wants to go somewhere else, and I'm like, and I'm in my head, I'm going, this is my biggest thing I hate about. There's two things I hate about not driving, right? And one is that I can't just, when I want to go somewhere, I can't just go, right? I have to call for a ride or figure it out ahead of time. And the other is that you basically get trapped when you're with somebody to an extent, And then I was sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what though? It's like, you're not voicing that you want to go home. You're not trying to set any sort of boundary, like, hey, I'm done, like, I need to go home, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I finally did, and then, and he was fine with it. He wasn't, it was just, he was just doing stuff for something to do. And it wasn't that I was having a bad time. It was just, I think I was just empty, as I just needed to get back to my safe space. So, it's, yeah. But, yeah, go ahead.
Like, hearing you on Salty Language, and you were talking about, the computer, and, how money is for you, and what it is in perspective to, like, going out.
Yeah.
Like, where you're like, hey, for anybody else, hey, let's go have a beer.
Yeah.
No big deal. For you, you're like, okay, I got to think about this. And
Yeah.
then, and knowing that, right. And
Yeah,
then you were
because that will
talking about
literally
like,
sap any money I have.
and yeah,
And
whatever
that's
little
it.
bit, right?
Then because I've got to
Yeah.
think like, is there something, do I have this or this that I've got to pay, or not just like bills type stuff, but just, you know, if I'm out and I want to get something to eat, like, oh, I can't now, like I'm kind of
Yeah.
stuck.
And then and you were talking about like the prospects of work
Yeah.
and what you could do at home and not and stuff, and I can see how that absolutely ties in with that whole like where's the future,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like where, if the thing that I've noticed lately for myself, and it's the part where, you know, I truly believe money doesn't solve money problems,
Right.
but it's really nice that I don't have to think about it right now.
Right.
Like I don't have to worry about if I want to just dump $8 in my video game on a
Right.
microtransaction.
Yeah.
It's not going to break me,
Right.
and it's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Like and because we are talking about things that bring us joy, which is hanging out with friends. You Yeah, sure, you can go hang out with your friends in the park when they're walking their dog, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
It's you go down to the bar, you watch the football game, you have a drink, and you
Yeah.
eat a hamburger.
Yeah.
And the fact that has to be a thought process, that sucks.
Yeah. And that's why I said, like, for a long time, I always used to keep like a $10 bill in my wallet, kind of a thing. And that the idea of that was that at any time, if something was $10, no problem, right? Like I got it. Like I've had a $5 bill that I actually found on the ground, and my first thought finding it was, oh, I hope somebody doesn't really need this.
Yeah.
But it had blown like in a parking lot, so it wasn't like anywhere to where I'd be like, and I'm not, did you lose $5? Because
Yeah,
who's
exactly.
who's not gonna say yes? But
Oh, there's that $5.
yeah, I mean, and I've had that in my wallet now for like 2 weeks. It's like I don't want to spend it, right? So, but yeah, you're right. Is in that I've never been one that I'm like, oh, I want all the money in the world, like I don't want the problems
Yeah.
that come with that either. But it's like I would just like to have enough to where it's like I don't have to think as much. If someone says, do you want to go have dinner? I'm sure, or even if you have to adjust it down a little bit, be like, sure, but I got to keep it cheap. That I don't mind, but but it's just the fact that, like you said, to where I'm either got to like borrow money or I am just like, no. And it's like, and I don't like the concept of, I'm honest with people. Like if I don't have money, I'm broke, and I've had, luckily, I've had friends that are still like, come on, let's go kind of a thing. And that's awesome. But also after a while, it's like that gets old because then even if they don't make you feel like you owe a debt to them, you feel like a burden
You feel like it.
for
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
So also, like if you're on somebody else's dime, I mean, I'm not one of those people that would be aggressive on the menu at that point. If I'm on my dime,
Yeah.
I'm going to get what I want basically. If I'm on somebody else's dime, typically I'm going to be a little more like, reserved on it because I don't want to be a jerk about, what I'm getting.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. And that was something that like I was explaining that to my therapist. Is I told her, I said, that weighs heavily on me that I really have to put a lot of weight into something that, like you said, it's just for a lot of people isn't that big a deal. Now I know there's plenty of people that it is, but for most people, like I said, if it was just, hey, do you want to go grab a hamburger somewhere or something, or do you want to go grab a beer, it's not usually that big a deal, So
Yeah.
and sometimes there's like weeks in a row where I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't, so and that's why I said, it's like, it isn't that I'm adverse to working. It's just, I can't find things that, as my head and health issues have put me, like, that I can figure out that I can do or that aren't a scam. Because like I said, I've read a lot about a lot of the work from home stuff, that it's really tough to get your pay, or they do things to try to basically not give you hours and different stuff so that it, You've really got to fight. And it's like, it's one of the things I love about like Indeed is that you can write a review for jobs on there. So you can, people will warn other people like, do not take this job. This is a scam, kind of thing. And eventually those jobs get removed by Indeed. Well, at least the last time I looked. I mean, there's still plenty that show up and say stuff like that. But I've looked on Reddit too, in like the anxiety forums and depression forums where people are like, hey, does anybody have like what kind of jobs can people like us go get, kind of a thing. And it's the best I've seen is I forgot, there's some site that somebody mentioned once before I looked into, but it's like, I think it's like $40 a month, but they basically vet all the jobs so that they're legitimate situations, so that they're not scams and stuff. But it's like, yeah, I'm broke. I can't just pull $40 out of my butt, for for that either, So, but yeah, it just it stinks when you're in a. I feel like everybody should have a situation in their life where they go through having to have a scarcity mindset, because I think it's good for a person overall, but I don't think it's good for any person to only have a scarcity mindset. Where you're like, you have to worry about every last dollar, like where's the next one going to come from? And, because it sucks. It's just awful because you're just worrying all the time. So it's, like you said, money doesn't solve money problems, but it can definitely, help the situation at least, or at least alleviate some worry in the meantime, But if you handed me thousands of dollars right now, it isn't going to necessarily fix anything necessarily in life. It's just going to, like, it gives me a cushion so I don't have to worry. But I'm so I'm so into it now that I'd still have to be talking to my therapist about changing the mindset.
Oh, yeah. Well, that, and it's not a long-term solution.
No, it's not. Yeah.
It solves some things, but not in a way that is really meaningful, or
it helps right now is what it does, or until eventually that money dwindles to nothing, because eventually it gets spent, just even if you're not running out doing much of anything, but just normal stuff, groceries, or, oh, you need a new pair of shoes or something like that, or whatever it is, So, yeah, it was interesting, though, because having that conversation with her, she was kind of at a loss for it, too, like when I was talking about the prospects and stuff, because I'm like, I just don't know what to do. And I was like, I've looked in online forums, I've talked with people in those, I've looked for different stuff, and I just don't know what there is for me, and that really sucks. So until I can figure that out, it stinks, because the way my brain works, I'm going to just keep worrying the whole time. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm definitely, as much as I'd love to be one of those, I'm just going to put it out to the universe and it'll provide. It's just not who I am. So, yeah. But, the big win was, like I said, I think approaching my talk with her differently about, like, okay, here's some real concerns. Now, essentially, the way it's worked is I've put the ball essentially in her court. So when we go back next time, because she was like, I'm going to think on this stuff and then see if, there's anything I can do or help with, kind of a thing. Or here's things that maybe will help you with the stuff. Like, I know we haven't talked about core values yet, but I know that's something we're going to get into, because core values is, a good place to help deal with some of the money situation stuff. So, and I know we haven't really talked about core values on here either. We should probably at some point. It seems like a good topic for one of these times.
Yeah, it's a good topic.
Yeah. But anyways, overall, I'm still in my funk, but I'm feeling a little lighter and more positive about stuff. So
I think that's the thing that I see with people that find themselves in a place where there may not be like the traditional idea of growth
Hmm.
that at least your life feels fulfilling where you're at. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
okay, I I have some time that I could work, can't find work, but I got this other stuff in the meantime that I do that's satisfying.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, then it's just all funk. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just nothing good about it.
Right.
But if you at least have something where you're like for me, I'm like, okay, 5 days at home. What am I gonna do? My brain doesn't work that well right now. I'm
Yeah.
not feeling well.
Right.
I can't focus really on too much.
Yeah. This
Well,
isn't
what can
5 days of vacation. Like it's 5 days off, but it's not necessarily 5 days of vacation.
Yeah, so I was just like, what can I do to at least feel like I didn't just sit around, wasting my time,
Yeah.
And so I went on, did a little bit of yard work every day,
Yeah.
and just kind of move things along.
Well,
And
it's funny because
that was nice,
we talked about that a little bit there too, because of the the mindset that you get from again, going back to like when you're in school. Like if you wake up and you feel terrible and you're like, I can't go to school, and then like, oh, I'm gonna turn the TV on, and sometimes the parents will be like, oh no, if you're too sick to go to school, you're too sick to sit around and have fun, right?
Yeah.
And then that carries over into work. People work for the weekend or whatever, and or like I jokingly said to my therapist, I was like, I didn't work for the weekend because I worked retail, so I worked for my Tuesdays, and
Yeah, exactly.
because that was more like it. I'd get Tuesday or Thursday off, because the weekends were busy, so you had to work. And I was, pseudo management, so that you got to be there on busy times. So it's funny though, because like you say that, it's like, but there really wouldn't have been anything wrong with you just laying around for at least the first few days, whenever you feel like garbage, kind of. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of us still have that mindset of I need to do something, especially I would assume people who are working, because it's like I don't get this opportunity to have 5 days to where I could do stuff that needs done or I wanted to do, or what, again, it's like, that's why I was like, it's 5 days off, but it's not necessarily 5 days of vacation. Like if you were on vacation, like you did before, where you were doing a bunch of different stuff, and I've known people that'll do that. They take vacation days for 3 or 4 days and they just do a bunch of stuff around the house they wanted to get done,
Oh yeah.
and it's,
Absolutely.
makes sense. I just think it's
Good
funny
use of your time.
how we just have this mindset that almost like we don't deserve to just lay around, or we don't deserve fun or whatever, and we absolutely do.
Yeah.
But I can also understand where you're not that kind of person to really be just lay around for 5 days.
Well, and it didn't have to be. I didn't have to be productive, but
Yeah.
I really was like so there were like I played guitar.
Yeah.
I played actually quite a bit of guitar.
Oh,
I
okay.
pulled the guitar out and I played.
Yeah.
And it was, the TV was on the background, and it was horrible because
Yeah.
coordination was off, and because I don't feel well.
Right.
But at least if and at least it felt like I felt like I was satisfied with it. I wasn't just
Yeah.
sitting in front of the television.
I
all
think
day
my
long.
thing is it helps me feel like I'm fighting versus like
Yes.
giving into the sickness or whatever, even though
Well, you know what it is?
I mean the first
It's like
day I
you-
had no choice, but from there it was different.
Yeah.
But yeah, that first day I was like,
and I think
I'm gonna lay in bed.
Yeah, it's all right. So I have to not be around people because I'm contagious.
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't mean I stop living,
Right. Yeah.
and whether it's reading a book or just going around the house and dusting a little bit or something,
Yeah.
until you're in. Like I went out and I, did some yard work. I made it about an hour and a half, and I was like, okay, wow, that's
Yeah.
that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I found
But I
that
think that
too,
really-
because like what was it, about the time I was getting to where I was feeling a lot better, my mom got COVID right at that time, so she was feeling like garbage. So basically she took care of me the first few days and I took care of her
Yeah.
first few days, so thank goodness I was feeling better at that point. Otherwise we would have been in a real mess, because we we would have both just been
I was so lucky in that Saturday night. I just happened to go down to the grocery store, and stocked up on so much stuff.
Ah,
Like I was so lucky. So when I started really feeling bad, like I had bought an 8-pack of Gatorades for work. And
nice.
so when I got suddenly, woke up in the middle of the night totally dehydrated, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I got all that Gatorade. Yes. And I'm like, can I have all my, and I was like, sweet. So I can stay home. I don't have to worry about this. Like
Yeah.
I looked at everything and I'm like, I'm good
Yeah.
until I can leave the house.
Yeah.
And and especially since because Sharon was in Guatemala.
Oh yeah, right,
And that was
right.
the
Forgot
other
about
thing that
that.
was
Yeah.
like, I was like, thank goodness she was in Guatemala because otherwise she was going to end up being sick.
Yeah,
And,
probably.
but B was like, I had nobody here to help me.
Yeah.
Like there was nobody,
Yeah.
I know my coworker said if I needed anything, she'd come, drop something by. I was like, thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah,
But luckily I was good.
my brother went and got groceries. Like I got, went online and ordered them. He just went and picked them up and then
Yeah.
just put them on the porch for me. And,
But yeah.
yeah. And then I went out and got them. And, so, cause, I think it was like we had gone out and then like the plan was the day that I got the chills, the next day actually, we were going to go to the store. And then that night is when I was sitting in bed and I just started shivering, and I'm like, oh no, like something's not right here, and just the way I was feeling. And then took the test and was positive, so it was luckily again, our neighbors had said the same thing when they found out that we both had it at the same time. They were like, if you need groceries or just want us to go to McDonald's or something, whatever you need, just give us a call. We'll because again, we can just set it on the porch. And I was like, yeah, I appreciate it, but all my my siblings all were calling every day making sure everything was good, so we were fortunate in that regard. But yeah, it was still not fun though, not really something I really want to deal with again if I can avoid it. Similar to getting the flu,
yeah.
I've had the flu a bunch of times in my life, but it's like that doesn't mean I ever want it again.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I understand it happens and I can accept it and I can run with it.
Yeah.
But I don't want it.
No.
I definitely don't want it.
Don't want it again. Yeah, it's not fun to deal with. And thank goodness, like you said, strains seem to be lighter, and we were both fortunate enough to not get tore up by it or worse. So that's good. Because I had completely forgotten about Sharon being gone. So yeah, that was pretty fortunate that she missed that part of it at least. So
yeah, and then what was really cool was by within a week I tested negative.
mm-hmm.
And that was a big deal because last year it took forever before I got a negative.
Yeah.
Like it was almost 2 weeks.
Right.
And so to have it happen pretty quickly was nice.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, cool.
That was interesting. Did you just test just to see? Because that you didn't have to have that for work, right?
No, I didn't have
Okay,
to.
I
I
was
just
gonna
wanted.
say, I didn't think so.
I just wanted to see.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was just gonna start the work week again the following Sunday, and I was like, well, I really should wear a mask. I wonder if I'm still be to test positive, and I didn't.
Oh,
so I was
okay,
like,
yeah.
okay, I'm not gonna wear a mask today.
Yeah, because my doctor told me, not to bother testing again, and they were like test again if you feel like you've backslid, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you feel like you're getting symptoms again, test again, but otherwise they're like you don't have to.
Yeah.
But here's the timeline. Okay.
So. It's basically a waste of a test because people were staying with. They would still show virus.
Yeah.
For weeks, even though they really weren't contagious any longer.
Yeah, that's what they had told me. Same thing. Because she's like, otherwise you're just gonna, like you said, you're just gonna keep burning tests for nothing really. Yeah. So like, okay.
Oh, and if those of you listening, if you have not done so, the free tests are available.
Oh yeah.
Available again, and so that's why I burned a test is because I ordered. You can get another 4 per household, and you can be sneaky too, like me, and do another 4 to your PO box. But what these are, the tests that they have right now are the leftovers. And so some of them are expired, but there's they have a whole information sheet about the expirations, and which dates are okay,
right?
Because the tests are still good. They just might not register like as strong of a line or something like that.
Yeah.
But the tests are
Well,
still
and
good.
that's
So
what
if
I
you
was.
haven't gotten your
Go ahead. Yeah.
just go on to onto the whatever it is
Yeah.
.gov and order your tests. They send them for free through the mail again, just like they have.
Yeah. Yeah, because they said that the biggest key to it is that the what do you call it, the test line, or I can't think of what it's called. There's the line that basically, like, that's the first thing you look for. If that line doesn't show up, then basically throw it away, because that means that the test is essentially telling you that it's, not good, or could be
It's bad.
false.
Yeah, it's
So
the control.
control. Thank you. I could not think
Yeah.
of what that word was. So yeah, that was the thing I was reading on most of them. So yeah, I've ordered them each time they've been available. So I actually have gotten quite a few, and I got to look through some of them to see, if they're still deemed good or not. But
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
go on to where you order, they've got a whole thing on the expirations.
Yep.
You can read about, and they'll tell you which kits are basically done, done skiing, which ones are still
Yeah.
okay.
right. So yeah, you're right though. There's nothing wrong with, like, just getting them and having them though. That way you don't have to,
Oh yeah.
go get them. You have them at your house and ready to go.
So speaking of information, I have a information topic. Not one to. It's not really anything to have a discussion about.
Yeah.
However, I thought it was good information. It was in the New York Times, and it was basically, is it safe to drink alcohol while taking SSRIs? And if you're listening to this program, you probably know what an SSRI antidepressant is. But for those of you who don't, it is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And this has been a thing that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going out and I'm going out to have some drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Can I? Should I? What happens
Right.
with my stuff? And what's great about this article is it basically kind of tells you, it's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, because the question comes up from the standpoint of like, oh well, I knew I was going out drinking, so I skipped my meds for the day for a day or two. And the article pretty much says don't do that.
Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah.
Because people that stop for a day or two have a tendency to now make it 3 or 4.
Right.
And which can cause greater lapses than whatever hangover you end up with.
Right.
But the what it's saying here is that, like, the SSRIs, Celexa, Zoloft, Lexapro, which are some of the most commonly prescribed antidepressants, that they are fine. It's, if you go out and still follow the recommended, if you're drinking what's considered a recommended amount of alcohol, which is you're not going out and throwing down a 6-pack every night.
Yeah.
They will work fine, and they don't have adverse effects.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that's the key thing, is that certain ones have adverse effects. And so some of the anxiety meds like Xanax, and then there's a tricyclic antidepressant, was it amitriptyline or Elavil, I guess?
Yeah, amitriptyline. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are more for like mood disorders,
Right.
and those those can have reactions with alcohol. But where the article says basically that the reason that we have this impression is because the early SSRIs weren't that good.
Oh, okay.
And that newer SSRIs are much better. But that, it's still, it's funny. It says, with all that being said, while taking meds for depression or anxiety, mainly because even though a little bit of alcohol can ease anxiety and inhibitions, it can trigger things that can make things worse for you.
Right.
That your meds aren't actually set up right. Your meds are set up for you on a normal day.
Right.
Right. and now you're basically giving your brain, you're saying, hey, anxiety, I'm gonna give you a big dose of what did I do last night.
Right. Yeah.
And your meds aren't it's not that your meds aren't working, it's your meds were designed for you not going out
Yeah.
and tying one on, right? And I thought
Right.
that was a great point.
Yeah.
It's not that you've made your meds ineffective, it's you've taken your emotions to a level that they're not supposed to be at,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah. Well, especially if you
So
do it to excess.
yeah,
Like you said, if you go out and you
exactly.
have a glass of wine or a beer or two or whatever, it's like you're probably not going to really notice much on some of these, but yeah.
Yeah,
But if you go out and like you said, you drain a fifth of Jack or something, it's like, yeah, you're going to feel weird because you just drank a lot of alcohol.
that's it. Yeah, and that this goes, that it's not it's the alcohol that might go against your goals of improving your depression and
Right.
anxiety symptoms,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just great. It's just practical. It's good practical stuff.
Yeah.
But with that being said, the SSRIs do have side effects. Some of them have side effects of drowsiness, fatigue, dizziness, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And alcohol, even one drink, can amplify that.
Yes.
If you are a person that already might have some side effects, just know those side effects could get worse.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that's actually the main thing I notice is like if I have some drinks is I notice that I get really sleepy and not like, oh, I'm going to black out kind of thing, but I'm just really tired. And that's the
That's it.
biggest thing I notice. Other than that, I usually don't really notice a whole lot, but I also don't go get stupid, it's very rare that I go drink more than like, two or three. So,
Yeah. And like they say that the sedation aspect is probably the worst part,
yeah.
because it can, if you're even within the legal limit to drive, because you're on antidepressant, you might actually be at a level of sedation that you can't be driving.
Yeah.
But the article says that it's more of the older medicines like the tricyclic antidepressants I mentioned where that is the case, and that the new ones typically don't cause that much um, sleepiness or drowsiness. However, they did say one thing, which is the MAOIs, the monoamine oxidase inhibitor antidepressants. Those ones can lead to dangerous spikes in heart rate and blood pressure that could require hospitalization.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, if you're on an MAOI, you shouldn't drink alcohol at all. We're
Right.
talking about SSRIs here.
Yeah.
And they say that Wellbutrin,
Yeah.
you can increase the risk of seizures.
Yes. That one I
When
knew
combined with too much alcohol.
because I was on Wellbutrin for a short time, and I remember reading that on the warning sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I thought, well, I'll put the link. We'll have the link in the show notes.
Mhm.
I know usually you can at least get a few free New York Times things, but I thought it was cool because it was just a practical look, and like, and there's a bit of a myth
There is.
to this.
Yeah. Because for
You
years
know.
you were basically told, like, if you were on anything for anxiety or a mental illness situation, that you shouldn't drink, basically, especially if you were more in, like, I know, like, some of the medicines that Jen was on, she was told, no drinking. Whereas the ones I was on, my doctor was like, you shouldn't, but you can have one or two and you'll probably be okay. Like, just don't go crazy, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that a lot of that is more of an older thinking because of older
And
medicines.
just the old medicines, yeah, and that's pretty typical. Like the first, when they come out with a style of a medicine, you tend to have more side effects. They refine it, you end up with less side effects,
Right.
And then what it just comes down to is like, well, maybe getting hammered isn't good for your anxiety.
What? Wait, since when?
And depression.
Yeah.
Maybe waking up with just a horrible headache.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But if you do drink, I keep hearing more and more good things about those pre-alcohol probiotics. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
know a lot of people that are
yeah,
that are using those, and they're getting good results. Because that's where the hangover starts in the gut
yeah,
biome.
yeah. I hate whatever. I mean, if it works, I mean, it's weird because it's like I almost don't want something like that to exist because I don't want people. It's similar to like people who like pop Tums and then eat, really spicy food, and you're like, that's kind of not what you're supposed to do here. Like, like you're not
Yeah,
supposed to.
that's yeah.
You're if you're getting heartburn all the time, that's a sign to cut back on some of this stuff.
Yeah, like if there's a part in Alcoholics Anonymous where they say that that someday there might be a cure for alcoholism, that science hasn't quite accomplished it yet, but maybe someday it will. And all I'm thinking about is like, yeah, let's just say that suddenly there's a pill where it basically makes me that I won't become addicted to alcohol
Yeah.
ever again. That's not going to stop me from those 1 out of 10 nights where I drink so much that I become such a jerk.
Yeah.
Like nothing's going to change that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. All right. So I won't do it nights in a row.
Not unless they also come out with anti-jerk pills, but
I know. That's
it's not
exactly. I mean,
likely. Yeah.
what typically works better for that is the friend that has been given the right to give me a swift kick in the buttocks and take me home
Yeah,
immediately.
right? Like, hey, you're being a jerk. We're leaving.
Yeah,
Oh.
we're leaving.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I said it's like I kind of it's one of those like just because science can do something doesn't necessarily mean science should do something.
Doesn't
It's
mean
like
it should.
I
It should
feel
yeah.
I feel to some extent like the hangover thing should be there as a deterrent
Yeah.
to the non-addictive people.
Yeah.
It's like that should be our deterrent to go, yeah, I don't like this. Why am I doing this? Like I feel like you're
So
supposed to have that feeling.
the fact that you have something so much a part of our DNA, right? That it's so much a part of our DNA that some people, their DNA is such that they can't even handle a glass
Yeah.
of wine.
Right.
It instantly makes them sick. And then other people can process so much alcohol.
Yeah.
Like myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That the fact that it's such a, I mean, it's so much of a part of us. It's clearly a part of our development as human beings, and that science has not been able to actually get a grip on this
It
at
is
all.
kind of
really
weird,
says
right?
something, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. Cuz you're right. And not just alcohol. Whatever food and other things that people find addictions with too. I mean, a lot of like, well, and a lot of it on a lot of these things comes back to sometimes there's psychological causes on some of these things too. But, like like how, we eat or drink our feelings away kind of a thing. But,
Yeah.
it's wild that there isn't like a way to really turn that switch off to where it's like, or regulate the switch, I should say, more so. Like instead of being able to go all the way to 10, it's like, okay, no, like 5. Like 5 is reasonable. We can all live at 5, and you're probably not going to destroy your liver and your life at 5,
Yeah, like the idea that there's our body has chemistry that takes alcohol and converts it into a substance that will pass the blood-brain barrier
Yeah.
and give us euphoria. Well, it has a side effect. It's poisoning you at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, right? That because it converted this thing so you can get a rush.
Yeah.
But everything has its consequences.
Yep. Yeah. That's right.
But that chemistry is also going to poison you. The podcast I listened to, it was what the podcast called, the Huberman or something. Anyhow, that was that like 3-hour deep dive into alcohol and how our bodies process alcohol. And I was like, wow. I was like, it absolutely explains why I've always been able to drink as much as I have.
Yeah.
It's that I am genetically so my body is genetically why do I keep wanting to say deposed? Wow, I'm having such a difficult time with that word right now.
Yeah.
Disposed. I'm
No.
genetically dispensed. Whatever it is. Anyhow,
Yeah.
that I create my chemistry is such that I can process large volumes of alcohol without it making me ill.
Yeah.
And some people, they can't.
Right.
Like, they do not have the chemist. So if you don't have this chemical, basically your body reacts to alcohol like it's a poison instantly.
Right.
They get sick. They like even violently
Yeah.
immediately.
Right.
However, if you've got plenty of this juice,
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
like,
It is.
okay.
It reminds you of like the monkey paw wishes, right? To where you get to wish for something, but there's always some weird drawback to it.
Oh yeah,
you know?
yeah.
They're like,
Exactly.
well, you know what I want? I
Yeah.
want something that I like the taste of. I can consume tons of it, and it makes me feel awesome. And the monkey paw
Yeah.
goes, sweet, here it is, and you're like, holy shit, holy crap! It was like whiskey. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking
Yeah.
whiskey, and then bad news. By the way, this also poisons you. Like, oh, like, oh,
But I feel so good.
yeah. But but I like this. Oh yeah. Also, it doesn't just poison you physically; it poisons you like psychologically.
Oh, yeah, as well. Oh boy. That's what's amazing to me. I still when this is the stuff that keeps me from ever drinking again, is just playing the tape on some of my worst next days.
Oh yeah.
And not just the physical worst
Yeah.
next days, but some of the mental and emotional next days.
Yeah.
And I was still willing to do it again.
Right. Yeah, I've known plenty of people that like
what
the
heck?
first thing they do is comb their phone, now.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm glad I did most of my, regretful drinking before cell phones." But now so many people are the first thing they're doing is peeling their phone up and like, did I post anything I shouldn't have posted on social media? Did I send nudes? Did I did I do anything I wouldn't have wanted to do, or do I need to make any apologies for weird calling
Yeah.
people or something? So it's like, yeah, that's and like you said, but it doesn't necessarily stop people from doing the same thing the next Friday night or the next night or whenever it is, just right back after it,
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, anyway, one last thing, like with the medicines and stuff, if you don't know what type of medicines you're on, if you go on like WebMD or drugs.com or one of those kind of sites where they give you breakdowns of medicines, they usually have breakdowns of which is, which type, or you can talk to your A doctor or B pharmacist and find out also, so yeah. And again, we're
Yep.
not doctors, therapists, blah blah blah.
Nope.
So if you read
Check
that,
with your physician.
yeah, consult your physician before consuming large or any quantities of alcohol to make sure you are a-okay. I guess, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, good topic. I like that. So yeah, I think we're good then, right?
Yeah, that's
All
a
right.
show.
All right. Well, if you want to reach out to us, you can find our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can email the show at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. Let's see. I can be found on whatever social medias I'm on at Stunami. My other podcast is Salty Language, or it's at salty_language on Twitter. That show is not safe for work. It's just me and my best friend talking about what do we talk about this week? Saints Row the video game. Best Buy is going to quit selling DVDs next year and Blu-rays apparently. A creep on a show called Naked Attraction that I've been watching. What else? Oh, a proposal that was done years ago apparently. I thought it was current and it wasn't, but a guy proposed to his lady at a KFC and the internet was a bunch of jerks to him, and then KFC helped him a little bit with the wedding. So turned out pretty cool for him. So yeah, if you want to hear us talk about that or waxing on about how we remember things before the internet and cell phones, give us a listen. Show's not safe for work, so be aware of that, please. And yeah, how about you, Heno?
You can find me on Instagram. I was posting up some reels of my dog, so it instantly sticks the tag on there. So I'm actually just Slimo on there, which is I haven't used that tag in a long time, but that's what's on there. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's what. So and then on Facebook you can find me at Heno Heiter, but everything that I downloaded off of Instagram and then to post on Facebook had just Slimo attached to it.
Oh, really? Interesting.
So yeah, I got to see if I can change that because even though I'm not on Twitter barely at all, X anymore, the Ida Heno was a pretty good tag. I'll see if I can change that on Instagram. But I just posted some funny little videos of my dogs.
Yeah.
We were having a lazy morning. It was funny.
Looked like you guys were just chilling around, so.
We were. It was a nice start to the day.
Very nice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you can also find this show on X or Twitter, whatever you refer to it as, at the Crazy Life Pod, I think. Yeah, maybe. I used to have it on here. Did I delete it? Sorry, I'm looking at my list of links here and I'm not seeing it. So anyway, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. And we are part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows there and see if you can find something else you like. Yeah, I think I deleted it. I'm not seeing it in my list. Well, goodness. All right. So yeah, if you need help, please reach out. Especially this time of year, a lot of us start, SAD starts showing its ugly head again. And I've already had various conversations with people that are already kind of feeling it. So, maybe like me, maybe, talk with your doctor or therapist or whatever about your medicines. Maybe you need a little tune-up as far as that goes for the winter or whatever. And so please do that, and also reach out if you know somebody struggling or somebody you haven't talked to in a while. Reach out to them and just tell them that you're there for them or whatever. And and then of course try to be kind when you can. Just please help out others when you can, and doesn't have to be anything financial. Just if you see a stranger struggling for something, just give them a hand and whatever. So we were at a restaurant last week I think it was, and this guy went to get up and he was struggling to get up, and his wife was not much help. Like she was trying, but you could tell it was an effort for her. And we're sitting across the aisle, and I'm like, do you need some help? And she's like, no, we got it. And I was like, okay, if you're sure, like I'm more than happy to come help, because listen, I mean, I have trouble getting out of some booths because of my knee sometimes. Like if it's really acting up, if I'm sitting on the side where that's the knee where I'm pushing off as I'm getting out of the booth, it kind of sucks sometimes. So it's like, hey, whatever. But he got up, he was fine, everything. But it was just still the idea that, if you see something like that, try to help somebody, just because, I mean, listen, we're all going to be there at some point probably, like to where getting out of a chair or getting out of a booth or something. Like I said, I'm 45 and sometimes it's a pain, so, yeah, anyways, but yeah, be kind. Don't be a jerk. And, yeah, I guess that's it. Heno, you want to take us out of here?
Yep. Live your omelet. Don't worry about yesterday's pizza.